What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you. So one that I kind of just wanted to go over, even though I don't think it's necessarily metal, but it's weird that a lot of metalheads really fucking like this band, and it is their first album in about 13 years, 12 years, something like that.
Something.
You know, a little bit closer on that number than I was on Dystopia and the last.
I knew it, dude. I knew it. I knew
know.
There was no way.
I was off. I wrote down the wrong fucking thing. Anyway, so we're going to go over the latest offering from King's X, 3 Sides of One. This also comes out on the 2nd of September on Inside Out Music. It's been formed in 1979 in Missouri. Now, honestly, for me, I am relatively new to this band. I just recently picked up some of their stuff when I was in Florida. I got Faith, Hope, and Love, or Faith, Love, Hope. No, it's Faith, Hope, Love. And the album Dogman, which were 2 very different albums, but I was really intrigued because I think their songwriting is really good. Now, this is their 13th album overall, if you actually count their first incarnation, which they were known as Sneak Preview for a little while. And this is a, I guess, prog rock, alternative metal, hard rock, just, I don't know. They're kind of hard to describe because they go down a lot of different avenues, which I think kind of makes them really welcome in prog circles anyway. This is a 3-piece comprised of one Doug Pinnick on bass and vocals. Actually, they all do vocals on here. Ty Tabor on guitars and Jerry Gaskill on drums. And this album was intended to come out much sooner, but this band ran into a lot of different, obstacles. Solo albums between all 3 of them. I believe Jerry Gaskill suffered a heart attack and has since recovered, obviously. And Doug Pinnick suffered a lymph node infection, and that sidelined them as well. And then we have, the fucking pandemic, which slowed down literally everything. And then there were some distribution issues for a little while, but finally we got this new album, and this is a really interesting listen. And again, kind of like prog rock, they cover a lot of territory, and we were referencing so much stuff listening to this.
So much stuff that doesn't really fall into a metal category.
No.
Named off a lot of 90s music, a lot of 80s music, a lot of 70s music, which is what this sounds a lot like. Now, this is my first experience with this band ever. I've heard of King's X. I've heard it mentioned over the years in many circles. Vinny and Dime from Pantera were giant King's X fans. Again, having heard that name, but having never heard the band, this was my first take.
A lot of the 90s grunge bands were influenced by them. This has always been one of those bands where you kind of get the tag of them being a musician's band. Like, yeah. Musicians mostly get into them because there's a lot of cool technique and great songwriting, but in terms of like accessibility, they've had some bigger singles in the past, and though they know how to write incredibly catchy, well thought out songs, they just seem to have like that giant single sort of elude them over the years. And it certainly isn't for a lack of writing chops, and that is still very present on here.
First of all, I would call this record probably the most good-feeling album I think we've ever reviewed ever on this channel. Just a lot of like happy, soulful, not so much melancholy moments, but just it's just really like a feel-good jam. There's wonderful vocal harmonies, there's smooth, buttery bass lines, fucking man.
Yeah.
Very short songs for the most part. It reminded me of being, a teenager and listening to music and like turning on things like 89X that was native here, or Buzz 106.5, which was also a native radio station here, during like the high school years, and just hearing a bunch of alternative jams. Like, Soundgarden, I think, is somebody that probably drew from this band, and they probably in turn drew from them. Just kind of a mesh of that.
A lot of the more rocking songs, when it comes down to like some of the riffs on there, like they're powerful, but they're powerful rock riffs.
Yep.
And you gotta just get this vibe of like, I would say like the 90s grunge movement definitely took some pages out of 70s rock, like definitely like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, stuff like that. But a lot of that feels more just straightforward like 70s, especially when you have the really just awesome analog sounding production on here.
Yep.
Everything on here is very warm and very lush. Again, the vocal harmonies between all 3 members, plus backup singers in here. There's extra percussion every now and then, tambourines, anything to make these songs sound bigger and sound like there are more than 3 members involved. But man, overall they do a great job with that. Like, it sounds like an intimate live show.
Yes. Especially in the song Take the Time. That song most specifically sounds like a mixture between like Pink Floyd and Porcupine Tree. Very soft, somber acoustic melodies, brushed drums, again, just very smooth bass. But it's very relaxed, and it sounds like something that could have been during the Unplugged movement, you know, and Alice in Chains and Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots did all that stuff. And it sounds like it could have been something kind of like that.
The whole song's like a nice, long exhale. Like, I don't know, like, it just has this very calming effect. I like the strings in there, too. Like, there's like a little bit of like a chamber music sort of string section in there. And honestly, like, it reminded me a lot of ELO. Electric Light Orchestra, in terms of writing like lavish pop rock songs with, you know, just more to them. Like, yeah, this is, you know, more orchestration, more, you know, interesting songwriting dynamics. ELO did that so well, and I get a lot of that on here. And, you know, sometimes the songwriting dynamics are maybe a little too wild. Like Flood Part 1, the second track, opens up with like a Melvin style sort of sludge riff.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, we're in for a nice heavy one. And then it takes a hard turn into like Beatles territory on the verses. And it's very soft and airy and light, and it has these pleasant vocal harmonies. Doug Pinnick is, you know, crooning beautifully on there. And then he simply says, I believe it's time for a flood or something to that effect. And boom, we're back to Melvinstown, and it's just sludgy and dirty sounding. And surprisingly, for as not metal as this is really, that guitar tone has some beef when it gets heavy.
Yes, it does. The song Swipe Up immediately is Tom Morello.
Yeah.
I could say Rage Against the Machine, I could say Audio Slave, but it's a mixture of both. But then it's got Alice in Chains vocal harmonies in it. But it's probably the heaviest groove on the album, at least I think is in Swipe Up. And then also in She Called Me Home, which is a more dark song, because a lot of this album is very uplifting and very relaxing and just kind of good feeling. But She Called Me Home, again, has that nasty guitar tone and sounds more like an Ozzy ballad.
Yeah. Honestly, like, you know, how it starts off is more soft and somber, but it's kind of, you know, it's a little bit darker, but even though, like, you hear the lyrics, it sounds more positive. And again, a lot of this is positive, and believe me, my ultra cynical self is struggling with that, because I'm out to poop on things just because fuck your smiles. But the verse is that little bit darker, and then you get this very positive sounding, you know, kind of soaring chorus to it. And then there's like this brief pause, and then it gets heavy and the big solos come in, which, holy shit, Ty's lead work on here is fan-fucking-tastic.
It is. And again, let us please remind you that this is not metal.
Yeah.
But very, very emotional, heartfelt, soulful leads. You can see, you know how we reference like Shred's guitar face, and you know, I could just see this being a very powerful moment, which is conveyed in the music.
Yeah. And that's like every solo, and they're very inventive. Like, you could have told me that there were multiple guest guitarists on here doing leads, but I believe this is all Ty, and he's just kind of a chameleon in the band. Like, whatever you're laying down behind him, he's gonna find some really cool just melody that is just very unique. It stands out. Like, all the solos feel very different from one another. And when you have that amazing bass tone from Doug Pinnick, oh my god, that is the thickest, warmest fucking thing.
Yep, I love the bass work. I think I wrote awesome bass work in just about every song. It's nothing too over the top, but it's absolutely perfect and in the pocket, and it's just what the song needs. And the tones he used go from warm to fuzzy to...
a little bit sludgy, too.
Yeah, a little bit sludgy at times. And then we get into songs like Give It Up, where they've got a little funk coming out to play. Immediately it sounded to me like a more funky ZZ Top.
Like a little bit of ZZ Top and like a little bit of Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yep.
It's a good thing that fucking King's X doesn't talk about Missouri like fucking Red Hot Chili Peppers talks about California.
You know, shit. But yeah, I love the bass in that song. Really just buttery grooves, kind of bouncy.
Slidey.
Yep, slidey. James Brown even screams in this song. I know it's not him, but...
the ghost of.
The ghost of James Brown.
Maybe the ghost of Prince too. I don't know.
It could be. I heard a little Prince too. There, like we said, this album is kind of all over the map in the styles that it touches.
There are songs in here that I don't know, like just the songwriting style is so wide and sprawling, but the whole vibe of the album again is like very feel good, very positive, very emotionally driven. Like everything feels heartfelt and earnest, whether it's a vocal passage, even a drum beat or an accent or something like that. It's like, yeah, this is all kind of coming from the heart. And I think all of that is on display on the song All God's Children. My God, what a beautiful song.
Yes, indeed.
Dreary, acoustic, and it's weird that I think I latched more to the more ballady stuff on here, and generally I'm like, fuck ballads, I hate your feelings. But this is done very well, and it feels very honest, and oh my God, the song absolutely soars. Like when it gets down to the heavier riffs in here, there's a lot of Black Sabbath in there. It's warm, it's fuzzy, it's just a little bit dark, but you have these beautiful fucking vocal harmonies.
Oh my God.
Every vocal passage on here, I think, is absolutely hooky as hell.
Yeah, the chorus is extremely catchy. The melodies that they use in conjunction with the vocal harmonies are just, it's beautiful. I think it's the longest song on the album, too. It's like 6 minutes and some change. But man, I didn't want this to end. And the leads in this are just... It gives you chills.
I mean, between that and Nothing But the Truth, in terms of like the dreary kind of bluesy ballads, that is where Ty just seems to let loose on the leads.
Yes.
Like Ty just has a way of pouring his heart out into these songs, and again, back to that lead work, it's absolutely amazing on here. And this is, you know, again, like I think you could say it's more of a soft album, but it's a good balance of rockers to the ballads. But again, the ballads are the ones that I don't know, that I really latched onto, and again, that's super surprising for me. Now, this wasn't without like some negatives on here. I think there are like certain choruses that don't necessarily work, namely on Give It Up, which it's just them repeating the song title. That's something that just kind of drives me nuts, especially when like everything building up to that feels like it's revving up, and you have that cool kind of funky broken down bass line. It's just a nice upbeat song, and then you got a chorus where they just said the song title over and over again, and you know, I just feel like there could have been more. Like this is a progressive band, you know, there's a lot of thought out themes on here, there's a lot of heartfelt choruses all over here, and this one just felt like we'll just throw this in.
Yep. And then you got another one in here, the song Festival. Well, it does have kind of a little bit of a Queens of the Stone Age sound. It really is just kind of there. They sing a song about throwing a festival. And what's the worst that could happen? Somebody dies?
That is the worst that can happen.
That is the worst that could happen, but they said, fuck it, we're gonna throw a festival anyway. And it's really just talking about what happens if they throw a festival.
I mean, it could be like the COVID thing or something like that. Like there could be a deeper meaning. But the song itself, like, I don't think it's necessarily bad, but it's not very interesting, and it's missing a lot of the fun dynamics that are on most of these songs.
Yep. And the song Holidays, it's all right. It's got kind of a Lenny Kravitz groove to it. But...
Well, I mean, Lenny Kravitz doesn't really write a lot of his own songs. Mostly the ones we know are covers. This is their song.
This is their song. But I mean, it's just kind of there. It was kind of a meh song. I even felt the same about The Watcher, except for the fact that it was Tom Petty doing War Pigs.
Yeah, like there's a melody on there that it sounds like War Pigs, but there's like a Tom Petty singer-songwriter vibe to it, like kind of Running Down the Dream-esque. Yeah. But there's like a little bit of like, ZZ Top Texas blues, which that definitely shows up on here too. I don't know, like a Watcher I didn't have much of an issue with. Holidays, I like the vibe of the song. It feels like just a sunny day drive on an open road, and you're just kind of just taking in the scenery, which is sunny and happy, just like this album. It's a nice song. I did have an issue with Everywhere, and the main issue is the fact that it ends so soon. Like, it has this kind of like poppy Beatles, ELO sort of vibe to it. It's very pleasant and very bright and shiny, and it was like, yeah, this is kind of a good way to close the album, and then it just stops.
Well, and that too, and I think, because I did like quite a few songs on this record, but a lot of it is really short. I mean, I guess that's not to say not every song needs to be long and lengthy, but with as much as they flirt with prog here, and the overall like emotives of prog, you'd think it'd be just a little longer in spots. And some of these songs, as cool as they are, do end a little quickly.
Yeah, that is almost kind of a compliment there too, because there was a lot of songs where I felt like it ended too soon or faded out, maybe a little bit too soon, like, oh, this is, we're going to fan out here? Because I feel like you're building towards something more. I wanted to hear more because the songs in here, I think, are very well written for the most part. Like, there's a couple I didn't get into as much, but the ones I got into, like, holy shit, I got into.
Yes.
I do think it's kind of odd that Doug Pinnick starts off as the focal, vocalist on the front of it. Like, the first 4 tracks are mostly him right up front, and he has such great presence. I love his bluesy croon, and it's a surprising range. He's 71 years old now, and he's still got a really good range.
He has killer pipes for an old fart.
But around like track 5, All God's Children and then beyond, it becomes more of a group affair.
Yep.
And I don't know, I just thought that was kind of odd. Like, maybe these songs were written in a different time, and I don't know. Like, it feels like, if this was mixed around a little bit differently to where, it wasn't so much like everyone else really takes the front stage, and the rest of it. I don't know. It was just something I noticed, and it kind of hurt the flow of the album a little bit. But overall, I really enjoyed this. And I'm going to go ahead and give it 3.5 stars. I'm still relatively new to this band's discography, and I'm sure there are tons of albums that are much more, lauded by the fans, but I think this is really good. Like, it's very heartfelt, it's very earnest, the songwriting's awesome, Ty's guitar work is amazing, the bass work by Doug Pinnick, just that tone alone, it's just so damn warm. Everything about this album is very inviting. It just wants you to sit back and fucking chill with it and reflect on, how cool the world looks. Maybe not on the news. Not on the news, just look outside at the sky or something like that. Like, everything's kind of shitty everywhere else, but you can still look at the stars.
The sunrise this morning at work was magical. I wish I could have gotten out there to take a picture. And that's kind of what this album reminds me of overall. It's just very relaxing and very chill.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, if you're looking for something that is kind of a break from the metal, but honestly kind of has that same songwriting dynamic, just in terms of like, we're willing to take some chances and kind of go down several paths here. Check this out. This is a really solid listen, and I mean, if you just like hooky songs in general, like, this whole album is really loaded with them. So yeah, definitely check this one out.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna give it a 3. I'm new to this band, and I don't know where this lies. I do know that I felt a lot of nostalgia jamming this album. It just took me back. And like Nick said, it's very pretty, it's very relaxing, it's very uplifting, which are not typically things we mention on this channel.
When we talk about atmosphere, it's usually dark, cold.
Yeah, just grimy.
Fuck you.
But that's not this album. The songs I did like, I really enjoyed. Again, All God's Children is a masterpiece.
Love it.
Of a song. I'm really impressed. I'm very impressed by, first of all, the bass work is simply wonderful. Again, this is like meat and potatoes, but done really, really tastefully. But yeah, it's a 3 for me. It's still a good jam. I would strongly recommend checking this out. Even if you're not a fan of this kind of music, I think there's a lot that you can latch on to, and you can kind of see who all has drawn from this well.
So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there is a link down below, in thrallsofmetal.com. There is a link that connects Patreon to Thralls, but while you're at Thralls, you can actually check out some of our merch there. We have t-shirts, and we are going to introduce some hats and shorts.
Shorts and some, I don't remember, there's something else.
Spiked billy clubs, chains.
Dude, let's get spiked Thralls of Metal billy clubs.
Coach whips. Thralls of Metal grenades. And other ridiculous shit we could attempt to put our brand on. I don't know. We have ideas. Most of them should not be nurtured to adulthood. So talk us out of some of this shit, because, I don't know, we're kind of impulsive. And as always, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following. Again, this has been a tremendous amount of fun. I love doing this. And honestly, this was one I was looking forward to, because this was something a little bit outside the box, and I had a fuck ton of fun listening to it. And I hope you guys enjoy the shit out of it too. So with that, I thank you all one more time, because you're all fucking awesome.
Thank you.
And we will catch you later.